So Peola, the story, asked, why is it that the strictly Orthodox Jews wear clothing that's not remotely related to the Bible? And this is the second in 2 videos on the subject. So the first one, I was basically saying it doesn't matter. Why does it have to be related to the Bible? First of all, not everything we do is directly from the Bible, and most of the things are kind of peripherally biblical. And the other thing that we brought up was that in other religions that are based in the Bible but also have oral traditions, their clergy and sometimes the lay people also might have styles that are also not in the Bible. Like we said, why would the Catholic priests or Russian Orthodox priests or deacons and nuns and so forth and monks have these various styles also not in the Bible? The Amish, they're, I would think, more along the sola scriptura line as well. Also, all of their members, not clergy, it's whether they're clergy or lay people, have particular styles that they wear to make themselves distinct from the rest of society. And so too, among some Orthodox Jewish communities, you have similar practices and traditions that we wear certain styles of clothes. It doesn't have to be from the Bible. Whoever said it has to be from the Bible. However, the Bible does say, the Torah says, that we should not go in the ways of the nations. So therefore, the fact that we have a distinct style, even if the style, as is often claimed, although it's not exactly true, it's often claimed that the styles were copying other styles. In certain senses, obviously, the 3-piece suit and the fedora is not a particularly Jewish style. It's in some ways, similarly, you'll see. I know it appears that the person asking the question has an Italian-sounding name, and I hope I'm not assuming too much that he's Italian. I myself, my ancestry is 1/4 Italian, so that those go along with certain Italian styles. And some of those hats, the fedora hats, the popular brand to buy from is the Borsalino, which is an Italian hat, and it's not made specifically for Jewish customers. These hats, though, the Hasidische hats and the Streimel, I don't know anyone else who currently wears such a style, although some of the styles, again, and the names of the hats and so forth, come from older things. So there's a hat called a kolpik, and it appears that comes from the Turkish kulpak, even though it's a slightly different style, but it's related to that. The spodik, I've heard, is actually a Mongolian style. Streimel, I think the original Streimel, is somewhat related to what the royalty wore in parts of Russia. But then there's another legend that says that actually the origin of the Streimel was that and it is probably a folk story, is that the local authorities said that in order to insult the Jews had to wear tails, as if they're some kind of animal tails. And so they decided, well, if we have to wear this tail, we'll take these tails and make a crown out of the tails, and that's where the Streimel came from. And again, this precedes the Hasidic movement, even though today it's mostly Hasidic Jews who wear the Streimel, but in some communities, the non-Hasidic Jews, particularly in Jerusalem, also keep this style. But so even if it's not biblically mandated to wear this particular style, it is biblically mandated to not copy the style of those who are around you. And so to have a unique style, even if it's an older style that was worn by other communities, maintaining that a distinct style that you can see someone and know right away that they're Jewish and that they're part of a particular Jewish community, perhaps, even if it's not mandated particular style by the Bible. One fulfills a biblical mandate of not following the Gentile styles. Now, some people say that that means particularly to wear styles that are related to idolatry. However, there must be some reason why in England the rabbis wore the same collars that the priests wore. And these were, I think, they were, at least some of them were Orthodox rabbis. So it's hard to say that wearing a priest collar is an idolatrous style, and it's also not based really in any religious reason. It's just, again, a uniform to identify someone as a member of clergy, and I think at a certain point it was even lawyers and judges who also wore that, and so too the preaching bands. Really were supposed to go together with the collar. So there's and again, nothing biblical about it, and perhaps forbidden actually that part to wear these outfits that are meant for clergy of other religions might very well be forbidden. But again, there must be some reason why. I believe some of the more Orthodox rabbis wore these styles. I think it was the custom of the United Synagogue, and still to this day, rabbis and cantors and so forth from the United Synagogue wear what's known as canonical garb, which includes robes and so forth that are very similar to that which is worn by clergy in other religions. So too, I think, among the Reform and the conservative rabbis, although it's not as common as it once was, there still is a custom like that. And I remember when I was a young man, a bacher, a single teenager, we used to, in our Orthodox synagogue, which was modern Orthodox, and most of the people did not wear anything other than a yarmulke to identify as Jewish. Some people didn't even wear that outside the synagogue. The synagogue where I grew up, on Simchas Torah, we would come out and dance with the Torahs in the street. And one time, I remember the Reform congregation across the street joined us for the Simchas Torah, and the rabbi, who I knew, I met him a few times, was wearing something along the lines of a cassock and what appeared to be a stole in the style of a tallis, but it clearly wasn't a tallis. It wasn't even like the Reform tallis. It was just a stole in the shape, in the style of a tallis of a Jewish prayer shawl with the lines on it along the lines of a tallis. So again, we have these different practices in different communities where they had this practice. So it's worthwhile to be cognizant of this, that it doesn't have to be from the Bible, but it still fulfills the biblical mandate of not copying, by wearing even an outdated style. And the truth is, the Hasidic styles, it's often been accused of copying Polish nobility. But if you look at the Polish nobility, it only bears a very small amount of resemblance. It's really just something that's totally different than what the nobility wore, with the exception of there was some kind of a hat and some kind of a long robe of some sort, but it's really not in any way related to the Polish nobility. So that's what we have there. So essentially, that's my answer. It is somewhat related, certainly, to wear long clothing, also, which the Hasidim do. Is a matter of modesty. It covers one's legs, similar to how a woman wears a skirt. It has to, in order to cover up the form of her body, and how that could be perceived as immodest, to see that form of the body that one sees wearing pants. So too, when praying, at least, or even when in the street, there is this idea, and certainly we bow in prayer and so forth, and the Muslims have the similar idea that they should wear some sort of a robe or a skirt when in prayer in order to cover up the form of their body for modesty purposes. So again, there is some, and certainly is a biblical injunction to be modest and to walk modestly with thy God. That's Ne'aleches Imalakecho, was yesterday's Haftarah. So there is an idea that is related to, in some ways, biblical ideas, but in the end, it's just what we do, in our circles, and it doesn't have to be biblical. So that's essentially the answer that I have. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. So again, it is remotely biblical, but it's not biblically mandated a particular style, but there is something that you can connect to, and actually, it's often called, in the Hasidic dress, is often called the Shmoyne Begudim, the 8 vestments, in reference to the 8 vestments of the high priest. So there is some biblical connection there. Even obviously, it's not exactly copying the vestments of the high priest, and we're not allowed to copy the vestments of the high priest. But nonetheless, it's connected in some way, ideologically, to that. Really, from a biblical standpoint, we don't even need to cover our head at all. We don't need to wear a yarmulke and so forth. But that at least has a Talmudic basis, even though it's not a Talmudic dictum. It's not required in the Talmud. From the strict halachic standpoint, if we understand what we call Ikar Hadin, it is permitted to even pray with bareheaded in Judaism. There's no Talmudic or halachic mandate other than that, meaning there are things in the Shulchan Aruch that are brought not to say that, essentially what they say is that it's something we don't do, and it's better not to do. But if it's not based in a ruling of the Sanhedrin, it's not an actual requirement. But it's become so prevalent to the point where if someone prays with a bare head, that is certain, or enters a synagogue bareheaded, that's certainly insulting. But even in general, to go around bareheaded, it's already a breach of our cultural communal norms, that one should not do so. And so to the point where, and I guess this will conclude with, biblically, it's the famous joke among Jewish communities, and it's different in each community. One version is that, how do we know that Jacob wore a yarmulke? The answer, it says Vayetze Yaakov, and Jacob went out. It says in the book of Genesis, would Jacob go out without a yarmulke? So then the same joke goes, how do we know that he wore a shtreimel, the fur hat? He said, because it says V'yetze Yaakov, and Jacob went out. Would Jacob go out without a shtreimel? That's how we roll. Obviously, it's a joke, but there's some truth in the joke as well. That it's a matter of devotion to God, and so maybe in his day he didn't wear a yarmulke, but in our day it would be an insult to go out without a yarmulke. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later. You can have a baseball cap. All right.